Be with us throughout this meeting. Be with our soldiers, both here and abroad, as they fight for our rights. Be with us as we leave here and bring us all safely together. For it's in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Roll call, Shelley.
Ma'am. Denise Taylor.
Here.
Becky Boston.
Here.
Bill England.
Honey.
Carla Dozier. Joe Bird. Sean Crittenden. Mike Dobbins.
Here. Can't multitask.
Frank Fargus. Wanda Hatfield.
Honey.
Rex Jordan.
Here.
Dick Legg. Mike Schambach.
Honey.
Mary Bakershaw.
Honey.
Joe Smith.
Here.
Terry Vasquez.
Honey.
David Walkington.
Honey.
Ryan Warner.
Honey.
We do have a form.
Awesome. Okay, I trust you've all read the minutes from the October 26th meeting.
For approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor? Any opposition? Okay. Our CEO, Sean Slayton's running a little bit late, so Lacey, if you want to go ahead and come forward and do your portion of the report.
Yes, ma'am. I don't have much else to report. We just saw each other a couple weeks back. So if you have any questions or anything to discuss, I'm happy to discuss this with you today.
Somebody have anything for Lacey? Okay.
Thank you.
You got off easy. Diane is here.
Okay.
Diane Kelly.
Move this along, that's great. I'm hoping. Just want to wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving on behalf of Career Services. We were late in getting our cards out, but we'll get them out. You'll get one before the month's out. We've been working on several business projects in Sallisaw, Jay, and Tulsa. Got some staff that are moving around. We've got these 2 new grants that are coming in, and some of the staff are shifting over there. And after the dust settles and we get everything lined out, I'll send out some information to you so that you'll know who's in what office and what they're doing and all that good stuff. Sometimes change is good for some of these people. It gives them a new outlook on things. We have a job fair scheduled in Pryor on Thursday, November the 30th. It will be at our office there in the Mid-American Industrial Park. Council members that touch Mays County. Hunter Palmer's working on that. And then our Christmas open house is scheduled here December the 1st, which is on a Friday from 10 to 4 o'clock. And the staff have been working on this. They got a Pixar cartoon character theme. Mr. and Mrs. Claus will be here, and they'll have pictures taken with Mr. and Mrs. Claus, and then they've got refreshments. And all the executive directors are pitching in 12 packages of cookies, and we've got hot cider, chocolate coming over from the Job Corps, and we're going to have the place all decorated. So look forward to having you all come by during that time period. That's all I have. You've got my report, and it's pretty thorough as to what we've been doing.
Does anybody have any questions for Diane? Okay. Go eat. Thanks. Yeah.
Oh, and I'm supposed to tell Councilman Buzzard and Councilman Schambach, Johnny called a while ago, the meeting tomorrow's canceled. It's going to be rescheduled. It'll be after Thanksgiving. So I told him to tell you.
Thanks, Diane. Happy Thanksgiving. Okay, I thought I saw Shay in the room to report from Commerce.
You did. I was hiding behind Diane.
I'm gonna just kind of
She doesn't stay in one place long enough to hide behind, so.
I'm going to follow her lead and just let you know you have a copy of our report. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I would like to point out that we had a record year in commercial lending last year, loaning out over $2.7 million to small business owners.
I did have one question. This is the second month that figures from C&E have been unavailable. And if you guys could get together and coordinate that so that, and Sean is walking in now, I'll mention it to him also.
We will do that.
We would appreciate having that in the report.
Sure.
Oh, Councilor Walkinston.
I know we talked about the iSafe program and some of those other programs. Have you guys did a study or a cost analysis of what that would be if we were to go back to the
We have, Anna addressed that yesterday in the Community Services Committee meeting. I don't think you were here, but we're still gathering that information. We have the numbers. What we're looking at now is kind of timeframes for when those funds would be distributed, so we could figure out the timing of when funding would be necessary, which is requiring a lot of, we've got over 700 clients between MAP and IDA, so the counselors are contacting those clients personally, so we will have that information for you at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, appreciate you. Thank you, Chair.
You betcha. Anything else for Commerce? All right, Shay.
Okay, thank
Go
you.
back and do good work. Okay, Sean Slayton. Moved you to the back of the pack this time.
That's not right.
Good morning. I apologize for being late today. Sorry about that. Today I have the privilege of introducing you, for those that don't know, Mr. Stephen Bilby, who's the president of our diversified businesses. And Stephen's a longtime employee and Cherokee, and has done a fantastic job of building the diversified businesses into what it is today. I'd like to take credit for it, but I can't. It's totally on him what's happened. That's been amazing to watch. In 2009, Stephen was challenged to lead the effort to diversify our gaming revenue and away from gaming revenue. And so he's done that, and in just 8 short years, he has built a company for the nation that just completed a $1.1 billion contract win in 2017. I don't know of any other company in the country that has done that, that's Native American in such a short amount of time. The Alaska Native Corporation has been the big player in 8A contracting with the government, and I know that we've made a big dent in their efforts and into the market. And I asked Stephen to, share with you some of the things that they're doing that don't get talked about, and kind of give you an overview of all the many different things that they're into. So, with your permission, I'll turn that over to him. I think he has a PowerPoint. Is that right?
Yes, they all have it.
So, if you like it, it's on him. If you don't, it's still on him.
And Stephen, before you get started, take us back to 2009. I know you had, we had talked about the amount of diversified business dollar figure at that time.
Yeah, it was very low, probably.
zero.
Yeah.
Okay.
Close
Zero.
to zero.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
So
Low as
yeah.
it can get.
You should have all gotten the packet that he's going to walk us through. We're not actually doing a PowerPoint. We're going to do this as if it were a PowerPoint.
So Sean, thank you for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today. I would love to take sole credit for all this. Sean deserves a lot of credit. The team that I have deserves a significant amount of credit for what we've built in diversified businesses. As Sean said, the challenge was to diversify. I try to say not away from gaming, but do something in addition to gaming. Obviously, that's a significant portion of our revenue and earnings, and so we're trying to just add to what is a successful business on the gaming side. So you can really kind of skip through the first few slides there. We just wanted to give you an understanding of what our vision is for diversified businesses, what we're trying to accomplish, and how we see that kind of layering in back to how we support the nation. So that's the meat of the first couple of slides there. You see an organization chart. Just wanted to give some of you that haven't seen this before just an understanding of who Diversified Businesses is. So we have 29 different companies. We're spread out in what we call 3 different groups. Federal Solutions being the largest, but we cover 6 sectors, and those are listed there for you. Our primary customer to date is the federal government, but we also have significant diversification efforts underway to even kind of venture outside of the federal government. I'll talk a little bit about that with you as well. Currently, we serve right at 60 federal agencies. And so it's really important when you think about the federal government to understand kind of the size and scale. When you talk about their spending on what they outsource or what they put out on contract, it's between $400 and $500 billion annually. When you compare that to the S&P 500 or the 500 largest publicly traded companies in the U.S., the federal government spends more in outsourced services than those 500 companies combined. So when you look at that singular customer as the federal government, each of those agencies or departments could stand alone against those large 500 publicly traded S&P companies. So that kind of gives you the magnitude of what the federal government spends and the customer that we're trying to attract within that group. We also serve many different commercial clients. You'll hear a couple of those examples today. AT&T is one of our largest. So when you look at the diversification of C&B, we're roughly 60-40 today in terms of revenue. So 60% of our revenue comes from gaming, roughly 40%, maybe just a little bit less this year, comes from diversified businesses. When you look inside of diversified businesses, about 85% of our revenue comes from the federal government. About 15% comes from commercial clients. That 15% is something that we're trying to grow. We're trying to grow the whole pie, but we're trying to increase that 15% up to where diversified over the long term would be 50-50, where we would be 50% federal government revenue, 50% commercial revenue. That's some of our longer term goals. If you go to the next slide, that's the map there in front of you. I was here about a year ago. At that time, I think we had employees in roughly 44 states. I'm happy to tell you today we have employees in 49 states. North Dakota is the only one we're currently not in. We also have employees that are in Guam. We have employees that are in Iraq, and we have employees that are in the United Arab Emirates. So this last year, the State Department became a significant customer of ours, and that took us into international development. And so we're seeing a lot of headway in that area and doing a lot of great work. In fact, one of our very good leaders, who is a Cherokee, his name is Tim Roberts. He is in Baghdad as we speak, working with our customer there on the ground. We've been operational on that contract for just under a year, and so he's doing a touch point with that customer to ensure everything's going successful. So he's doing a fantastic job. So yeah, if you flip to the next slide, as Sean told you there, one of our great celebrations this year was we won almost $1.1 billion in federal contracts. That's up, if you go ahead and look at the chart there, that's up from $611 million the previous year. So just over a 5-year span from 2012, we're up 318% in terms of contract wins. So $244 million in 2012, up to, as I said, just under $1.1 billion for 2017. And again, the State Department was a significant customer. About $500 million of that was with the Department of State. When you flip to the next slide, this gives you some perspective. We've won just over $3 billion in contracts since 2012. Now, to give you some example of those, typically our contracts will range from 3 to 5 years. So that $1.1 billion will be spread out over multiple years. We won't see that in one single year. But as you continue to build that average of contract wins, your revenue will follow that trend, right? So it's a great leading indicator of what the growth potential is for diversified businesses. Currently, we support about 630 employees in the state of Oklahoma. Most of those are inside of the Cherokee Nation. We do a lot of work for FAA here in Oklahoma City. We do work in Fort Sill. So we have other work inside of the state of Oklahoma. Most of that 630 is our support staff that work in Catoosa, some here in Tahlequah, some in Pryor, some in Stillwell. So that's the number in total there. If you flip to and I already alluded a little bit to some of this, but if you flip to the revenue chart, we did $344 million in revenue this year. The downtick, which is one of the first downticks that we've seen inside of diversified businesses, the downtick was due to our AT&T customer. They had an enormous CapEx budget last year, so they were spending on building out their infrastructure, mostly in the southeastern part of the United States. And so they crammed a 3-year contract that we had with them into about 18 months. So we saw about $50 million more in revenue than we expected last year in that AT&T contract, and we expected that to flow into this year. So it didn't kind of plane itself out. It occurred in an earlier manner than we expected it to, but we'll take it all the same. But that's the reason that we dipped down in 2017. Flip the page, if you will. This shows you kind of the efforts around the diversification from an operating income perspective. As Sean mentioned, we started at zero, and we on the revenue side we make up again the 60-40 or 40% of the revenue of C&B. On the earnings side or operating income side, we make up about 10%. So obviously our gaming division has very high profitability. We would love on the diversified to have that as well. But so we're at about 10% of the overall earnings for the company, and obviously looking to continue to grow that. Yeah, so our margins are roughly 8% on all of our work. And again, significantly higher on the gaming side, but roughly 8%. On some of our work, we'll see that push up to 15-16%. On some of the construction work, we'll see that fall in around 5%. So it's a mixed bag, but usually the average falls out about 8% margins. Just an example of a few of the projects that we've been working on. These are not our largest projects. But they're some of the most impactful, some of the things that we're doing that I think make a difference inside our country and bring a lot of goodwill to Cherokee Nation and Cherokee Nation businesses. This first project it's called the Tomb of Remembrance. It is at Arlington Cemetery, and this is basically where they take unidentifiable remains of our soldiers, and there is a tomb, if you will, underneath this deal you see pictured, where they can do a ceremony and basically drop those remains into this large tomb that is underneath this monument, if you will. So something that we did, we opened this last year, right before Veterans Day. So it was about 12 months ago. But I thought with us being on the back end of Veterans Day, it'd be a good example of some of the things that we're doing. This was within our construction division. The next one is something that we're doing in Stillwell. This is an unmanned helicopter called the Fire Scout, and we are building wire harnesses for that. It's a nearly $1 million contract, so exciting work for us. Obviously, we feel or think that there will be significant growth opportunities in the unmanned aerospace space, and so we continue to try to position ourselves for more of this type of work. So this was a really good win, fairly small win compared to some of the others, but a really good opportunity for us to break in to that space. The next one, based on some of the recent events with the hurricanes Harvey and the others that impacted Houston, Florida, and Puerto Rico. So we are sending our staff, some of our staff, down into those areas. So Usually the first responders go in right after the event, and then over the next 18 months is really where you start to see the cleanup and some of the rebuild start to happen. Just to give you some perspective on the duration of this type of work, 6 months ago, we ended our work on Hurricane Katrina. So we had one gentleman that was remaining doing finalization work on Hurricane Katrina. So with some of these massive disasters, FEMA can be involved for roughly 10 years. And so our last employee walked off of that project just about 6 months ago. So with Harvey and the Florida and as well as Puerto Rico, we have been pushing our employees down there. Most of them are construction-related type of positions. Most of them are professional construction jobs at this point. So as the rebuild starts to happen, you'll see more of the hands-on construction jobs start to develop. But currently, right now, they're more in the planning and assessment phases than they are in the actual rebuild, at least on the things that we do. And I have two more things, and these are actually more of kind of awards, or just to give you some understanding of how we are spreading who Cherokee Nation is as part of our business efforts. The gentleman that you see pictured there on the Defense Health Agency slide, his name is Seth Wanger. And Seth is a Cherokee citizen. Seth came to us about 6 years ago and wanted an opportunity. Very smart guy. I believe he was 22, recently graduated college at that point in time. He went and worked out in our Denver office. He wanted to move out there, so we gave him a project out there. Went out, did a great job. At the time he was out there, he used our tuition reimbursement through C&D, got his master's degree. A project came open with the Defense Health Agency out of our DC office, and Seth volunteered to go out there and take that project on. Seth was asked by the DHA to come in and do a presentation, and you see it was entitled Standing Together, but basically the Defense Health Agency wanted to give some perspective to their office about the commitment and involvement of Native Americans in the military. And we all know that we have significant pride as Cherokees in that. We all know that on a per cap basis, Native Americans enroll more or enlist more than any other population. And so Seth did a fantastic job of bringing that education to the DHA and representing us extremely well. And you know, the thing, if you guys ignore all of the financial results, the thing I want to make very clear to you all is we have a great group of employees that they pin the star to their jacket every day, and there are many of them getting on airplanes and going around the country representing the Cherokee Nation and Cherokee Nation businesses. And yes, they ultimately win work and we all reap the rewards of that, but they represent us so extremely well, just like Seth did in this example of what the Cherokee Nation is about. And I'm as excited about that as I am about our financial results. Who we are and spreading that goodwill is extremely important. The last slide or picture there is basically a couple of our guys accepting the Small Business Award, Achievement Award from Department of Homeland Security. There were 16 companies selected by DHS as a small business awardee out of 6,000 companies. So there's 6,000 companies supporting DHS. 16 were awarded this, and we were one of that 16. So that's a testament to our folks, their commitment, as well as the job that we do day in and day out. So with that, I will stop and answer any questions that maybe I didn't cover well enough.
And I have one comment to make. We need to keep in mind that, yes, while we are diversifying our income, another function of our businesses is to provide jobs. And Mr. Bilby pointed out on this side, we've got 630 jobs. And so even though the margins are small, you've got 600 families that are sharing in the, the benefits of working for Cherokee Nation. And so you have to keep that in mind also. Counselor Walkingstick.
Thanks, Stacey. Hey, what companies, government-aided companies, are not performing well?
Not performing well. We have, primarily I would limit that to our logistics, distribution sector, as well as our engineering and manufacturing.
Where's that at?
That's in Pryor and in Stillwell.
In Stillwell?
Mm-hmm. If you're speaking from a monetary perspective.
Yeah, monetary. What's the holdback? Like, why aren't they performing or meeting?
So last year, as I spoke, last year our logistics and distribution sector, they had the AT&T contract. They performed extremely well during that year. When they kind of basically shortened that contract, that left us with a big hole for that organization in 2017. So we've been actively out working to win contracts. They've won in that sector. They've won contracts with IHS as well as a few other agencies. So over the long term, we're looking to turn that business back around. On the engineering manufacturing side, we simply have not had.
That's Stillwell, right?
That's correct. We have not had enough business development going on within that organization. So as part of that $1.1 billion within engineering and manufacturing, we won $80 million worth of contracts within that group. The previous 2 years, we had won $20 million each of those years. And so the business development has significantly ramped up. We're seeing the fruits of that labor. And so as we move forward, you should see those businesses start to turn around as well.
What's your forecast for potential contracts that may be a home run, I guess, for the Cherokee Nation?
What are you looking for from a forecast perspective?
Well, do you have any businesses that are coming in that may supplement those losses for those two entities that you just named?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're the organization Diversified Businesses is profitable. So the other sectors are significantly profitable, and they absorb all of the losses plus contribute to the bottom line. So we're a profitable organization. I think from a EBITDA perspective, we did about $18 million in EBITDA last year.
Out of the Cherokee, out of the Stillwell and the Pryor?
That's all combined.
Okay, I'm talking about just those two right there, Stillwell and Pryor.
So what do you help me with what you're looking
Well,
for?
so there's, the people I talked to in Stillwell and up at Pryor, they said there's a lot of shortfalls. They're not meeting their quota, and it's 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, and so 70 million total between the two. Is that accurate, or is it 70 million?
I'm not following where
As
you're
far
getting
as
70
not
million.
being in the red, like not performing in the red, those two entities.
No,
Stillwell
it
and
was
Pryor.
7 million. Would
It's
be
7
that.
million?
Yes,
Okay,
70,
7 million,
yeah,
okay.
7 million would be that number.
All right, so that's the total, right, out of those two?
That's correct.
Okay. And anyways, the good thing is that those are providing jobs in those areas. I just don't know if there are other contracts that were coming down the pike, or if we're heavily recruiting other contracts that could supplement that 7 million.
Yeah, so like I said, we won, and when again those contracts are sometimes 3 to 5 years long, right? So we won 80 million in engineering and manufacturing. Let's use them as an example, right?
Yeah.
Historically, that had been 20, right? So when you do 20 and 20, that's where we started to see the slide and started to see the losses creep up. As we bring that business development up, right, and those contracts start to contribute to revenue, that's what will lessen that loss, if you will, for that sector. So yes, we continue to see opportunities. We have a full-time business development staff out working to win additional work to get those sectors into the black.
I know that's just a small picture of what you do with the $1 billion you get, but those two entities affect all of us around here.
Absolutely.
So that's the reason.
I'd say the last couple of years that I have been involved with with the Stillwell and prior operations is we've been really focused on building the platform for success, right? So investing in our systems, investing in our process, and investing in our business development. Over time, that's what's going to lead us to success. I'll give you an example on the logistics and distribution side. We're currently doing a pilot program where we're building bath bombs, which are things that I guess ladies drop in the bath to smell good and other things. But we'll also be building candles as well. That's a pilot program where we are looking to diversify our organization and create jobs. We believe there's about 70 potential jobs that could come from that as we step through this pilot. So there's 4 phases of the pilot that we have to successfully step through before we could see that type of potential. But we're always looking for opportunities to create jobs and create profit.
Something with Google. I heard something about Google coming in. Is that a potential, or is that already here? Or?
Well, the Google data center is in Pryor.
It's in Pryor. Okay,
It's in Pryor, yeah, and that's a fantastic facility. They've invested over $1 billion in that facility. We don't have any partnership with them per se, though.
Well, we appreciate the update, and I think you're doing a tremendous job.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate
All
that.
right, thank you, Chair.
Do you have something you would like to say? Go ahead.
Yeah. Mr. Bilby, the Tyson plant, is that still on the radar there in Stillwell, just sitting there waiting on some production to happen?
Well, so I would probably, Chuck Garrett would probably be the best to speak to the real estate. We're always looking for opportunity and how we execute that work. So in terms of any particular facility, all options are on the table. If we can justify from a business perspective or find an opportunity that needs a facility like that, all options are on the table.
And help me understand, like our Cherokee Nation construction, we have that? And this is just coming out of just not knowing. But the different things we have going here, like the hospital, maybe an easy answer, but how come our construction company couldn't do some of that work?
Yeah, so we worked on the clinics because they were, I would say, and Sean, jump in if need be, the clinics were within a scale and scope that we thought we could successfully perform on. The larger clinic here next to Hastings is something that is simply out of our wheelhouse. Too large. It's more complicated than the smaller facilities. And so the last thing I would want to do is take on a project that would fail. And so we kind of stepped back and looked at what our capabilities were, and it really just didn't align to that project well.
One other thing, I've been talking with Chris, and he's going to let me know when that can happen. But my Stillwell folks, they're over the time since I've been here, the bonus time of the year, it's always complicated and lots of phone calls. And I seen a email from Lacey, I think it was last year, and I think we've got one this year, about the Cherokee Nation bonus. I mean, it's informative, nice. Hello, you will receive this amount on this date. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and where to pick it up at. And I've getting a lot of calls from my Stillwell folks wondering when and how much. So if you could remind Chris to kind of help me out on that deal.
So the email, Sean and the chief sent a very nice email last week. I believe it was last Thursday. I'm sure very similar to what Lacey did here inside the nation. Basically praising everybody, telling them good job, and communicated that those would be paid today. Historically, they're always paid the week before Thanksgiving. So I'm not sure where that miscommunication.
I just talked to Chris yesterday, and he didn't know he was going to get back with me.
Yeah, Chris is on vacation, so he may be a little bit unarmed, but
More importantly, the people didn't know.
yeah, and I will find out why that didn't happen.
So they're getting them today?
The communication was sent out. Some of them do not have email, so the supervisors were supposed to communicate that. But just kind of on a larger scale, they're always the same same week every year. It's the week before Thanksgiving every year.
Week before Thanksgiving.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because you do know that we've had some difficulty kind of communicating on that in the last few years.
I can only speak to the last two that I've been involved.
That's about the same
Yeah.
time as mine, but if it's coming, great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
Counselor Lake?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I don't want to beat the band for him, but Stephen is one of the smart guys over there, and there's a lot of them over there. They're really good at their job, but he's one of the probably 2 or 3 over there who's not only the smart guy, but he can explain it down to a level that just about anybody can understand it, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wanda Hatfield?
I want to talk about your disaster relief efforts. It says the company has been active in providing emergency services to Katrina, and I guess this is my first experience with Hurricane Harvey, with our Cherokee constituents in the Houston area. And the number one, it was a complaint concern was just getting money quickly when you're without a home, when you're in a shelter. And I think did we provide $15,000 to Red Cross? Was that all, was that the entire? And my concern is, I don't, what exactly do we do?
What do we do?
Besides- Yes.
Yeah, so currently on Harvey, about 3 weeks ago, we sent a team of 6 folks that are predominantly construction managers.
Okay.
So we are working directly with FEMA,
Okay.
and they basically allocate projects to us to go in and work with engineers, all the different trades to, right now it's mostly assessment on what does the effort need to be to rebuild, remodel, or tear down and do a complete rebuild. So we're working kind of on the front end assessment phases of that at this point. At some point it will move into the actual physical construction. Some other companies are, they're part of the tear out cleanup process. Historically, that's not where we have been successful.
Okay, construction, I mean, like, the entire population, and I'm concerned about Cherokee citizens, I'm concerned about all people, but
Yeah.
Cherokee citizens in that area, I didn't receive any information from Florida. We, our at-large population there, I guess they did okay. Daniel Morris did not. He indicated everything was okay, but it's just sometimes, it's like, I know the overview, we're helping like the entire population. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're working for FEMA.
Or FEMA?
Yeah,
Okay.
and so in terms of how we can help Cherokees in these areas, really, I mean, what we could guide them on or help them on is the process that they should go through within FEMA to get funds, to get help. In terms of the immediate emergency type of response, I'm not sure which organization, probably wouldn't be us, in terms of helping somebody get the food, water, those immediate sort of needs. There may be something within the nation that can
Why
help
couldn't
with
we
that.
do that? I mean, why couldn't CND do that?
Well, I'm not saying we couldn't do that from a business perspective. It's just not been something that we have chased.
Is that something we could maybe?
Those efforts historically, Wanda, have come through the government. If they
Okay.
ask for our assistance financially or with supplies, then we jump on that.
Okay.
And we're willing to help just whatever the nation decides they need to do
Okay,
for their people.
That's basically my concern, because most of the calls probably were from, just immediate, you've lost your home, you've lost everything, you're in a shelter, and you need shelter, you need food, you need clothing, and we're not talking about a large population, but a fairly good number, and that's the thing that I don't think we have anything that, even though we're assisting them, that maybe that's just something we brought up with the committee. I don't know, but anyway. That answered my question. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Counselor Austin?
Yeah, you know, I attend more meetings than most, I believe, because I live just a few miles from from where most of the meetings are, which makes it a little convenient. So I witness what goes on there maybe a little more than others. And I've been very impressed, and it's not just you guys, it's the board of directors that we just approved last night and some of them today. The board of directors is a 100% Cherokee board. Many of our highest and best leaders like Stephen and Chris that you spoke of are Cherokee young people who are really showing that they know how to lead. They know how to run a business. And when you sit and you listen, as an advisory board member, I have this opportunity to do this, and I sit and listen to what these guys talk about, the board of directors. I can tell you, they keep these guys on their toes, and they make sure that these guys are keeping in mind that the reason why they exist is for the good of the Cherokee people. That's the reason. That's the only reason you guys exist. As you well acknowledge, and your board reminds you constantly. Your reason for existence is to benefit the Cherokee people, and we have a good board of directors who holds their feet to the fire, and that's the reason why we see the kind of results we're seeing here today. So I want to thank that board of directors, and thank you guys for your good efforts.
Stephen, I want to thank you for reporting on diversified business today. I think a lot of times it's, Sean comes in and reports and it's just a number that's kind of thrown out. But when you bring it down and make it real and bring it to the number of Cherokees, number of jobs that we're creating, that's something that we're all interested in. I know when I went on, there were, I think, 25 employees at the facility in Pryor, upwards of 60 now. And depending on these contracts that are going out, there's a possibility to add to that. So I appreciate what you guys do for my constituents. Do you have something to add?
Yes, also, for years, going back to the 80s there, the C&I, it's always been to create jobs. Really, there wasn't much profit to be made there. 80% of the workforce were women, and they were the breadwinners of the families there. And appreciate you stabilizing, C&I, because we've had that company for 50 years, I think, as long as I can remember. And just want to thank Sean, you and the board for keeping us out of the red. There's a lot of tribes out there that are not as blessed as we have. And when you talk about those board members, they all come from small business. They're all successful in their own right. And they don't come in very fancy in these $1,000 suits that I used to see years ago at CMB board. They come in, they're down to earth, they're blue jeans and boots and caps, but they're good, successful business people. And just keep us out of the red, We could be employed with the state. We're blessed to be employed by the Cherokee Nation. So we thank you guys for what you do and what you represent. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here today.
Okay, now I want to address Sean's report. Were there any questions that anybody had? We got so excited about the diversified business. Is there anything that you need to tell us from last night? Or any questions that anybody had from reviewing his report?
I think you've seen today a good example of the Cherokee talent that's in the organization. I counted up the other day, 20 out of 24 of our top leaders are Cherokee, and they're the ones that make it happen. And Mr. Bilby took on CNI a couple of years ago at my request, and although it's been a painful journey, that organization is starting to turn around, turn the corner. And with the $80 million in contract wins this year, over the course of the next year to 2 years to 3 years, I think there's some improvement in the results there. They've got a great workforce that are eager to do it right, and I think we've got the right leadership to make that happen.
Yes, Councilor Walkenstick.
Hey, Sean, the last few meetings we've been talking about cuts in revenue of a CMB, and so I would like you to discuss to this body, because the purpose that we've been hearing is that it's the Riverwind, the Creek Nation Casino. But I want you to address this body on how is the Hard Rock competing with the with the Creek Nation Casino?
Well, David, as you can look through the financials and see, we're competing very well. There was a third-party estimate done that we had hired to see what impact on the Hard Rock and our dividend would occur with the opening of that expansion. They put $300 million into Margaritaville. I can tell you that, as I understand it, that their dividend over there has been cut 12% over the last 2 years.
I'm talking, it's from our end though. Like how is?
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
You know, their expectation over there is not being met. The reason it's not being met is because Hard Rock has put a plan in place. We did it years ago, a mitigation strategy. And over the course of 2 years, once we found out, we did things to mitigate whatever loss might be out there. It was estimated anywhere from 15 to 25%. We didn't have anything near like that this year. We had to spend a little more money in a marketing battle to keep our customers there. And my hat's off to our gaming entity, and particularly the people at Hard Rock, for mitigating what impact there might have been from that facility. They've done a fantastic job. We paid more in dividends this year than we've ever paid. And my hat's off to the management team for making that happen and not for letting it impact the nation as negatively as it could have or was forecasted to.
So you're saying the Hard Rock has not been impacted by
I'm
the
not
Creek
saying
Nation?
that. I'm saying it's been minimized.
Minimized.
It's been minimized. And with the other things in the mitigation strategy, like growth, the marketing techniques that they implemented at Hard Rock, which I don't really want to get into publicly, we were able to minimize the impact at Hard Rock, and thus on the Cherokee Nation and the dividend.
The losses that I was referring to that was brought before council, if we didn't take the hit up at the Hard Rock, where do we take the hit at?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Dave.
So Chuck Garrett came to the council and says, hey, you know, we're $2-3 million below what we was making last year.
We spent probably we spent a lot of money at Hard Rock this year that we didn't have to spend in previous years, that to minimize the impact of the opening at Margaritaville.
Okay.
So, I mean,
All right.
I tell you what, I'd be more than happy to sit down with you outside of this meeting with whoever you want to meet with, and we'll go through it item by item if that would help you.
So it's not item by item, it's just a question.
But
Yeah,
I tried to answer it the best I can.
okay. All right, you did good. Thank you, Sean.
Well, I
Thank
think
you,
I think it's important to note that in our report that he furnished us, the EBITDA was up almost $2 million in August of 17 from August of 16. So, and that's C&E. So,
When you start getting down to the bottom line, we measure on EBITDA. That's earnings before interest, taxes, and all that, and depreciation. Bringing on all the new facilities over the last few years, our depreciation expense has, jumped way up there. That's just an accounting method that we're required to follow. And so when you look at the bottom line, that increase in depreciation, if you will, negatively impacts what your earnings are. But if you look at the EBITDA across the deal, we're still strong. And I appreciate guys like Stephen and the gaming people for making that happen.
okay. If there's no further questions or discussion, we'll send you guys back to do what you do. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Mr.
You're
Bilby.
welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, that is our last report. Let's move on to the consent items. You got tarot list was emailed to you, and also you should have a new list. I would entertain a motion to approve those.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to approve the tarot recertifications, no new ones this time. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, Jody, brings us down to community assistance. Everybody look it over good, because there's gonna be people counting on your donations for Christmas stuff. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Chief? Oh, I thought you said you had a question.
Well, I did,
Okay,
but I'm gonna
Counselor Warner?
yield.
Yes, ma'am.
Guys, please.
Jody, I need 500 for the Marble City Food Pantry. And then, if everybody doesn't mind, I'd run around and talk to everybody here except Harley. He's in surgery, but we got in touch with Frankie, and everybody had agreed to do. I did 1,000 for Indian Child Welfare, and I'd asked Rex this morning. He did 500. Everybody else, all other council is in agreement to do 500 for Indian Child Welfare for the foster kids. The only one that I hadn't made contact with was Harley. So, but he's in surgery.
He's knocked out.
He's knocked out.
I'd ask for
We'll take
more.
2,500.
Yeah. Okay, does anybody else have
Harley
any
said he's
Counselor
matching.
Vasquez?
Yes, I need $500 designated to a scholarship fund for Payton, Payton Taylor. It's already in existence, I'm just giving 500 to that scholarship fund. And that would be out of for Veneta.
Jody, I need $500 for the Chilocco Alumni Association.
Counselor Jordan?
Yes. Jody, it's got the city of Hobart listed for 1,000. That should have been under me.
Okay.
Is everybody else good? Okay, I need a motion to approve.
Motion.
A motion second.
Second.
I got Rex, I got Dick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, there were a couple of changes in law enforcement, it looks like. I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second on law enforcement. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Looks like there are a couple of changes by Council Jordan on roads. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Can I get a second? Get a motion
Second.
and a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Jody, were the sports teams good? I don't see any new.
They're still going through the process of getting some
Okay.
with
Okay,
the
so we'll skip
new
those.
application and everything, so.
We have got some, looks like Keith and I had some additions on the livestock. Well, actually, there's several additions on livestock. So I would entertain a motion on those.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any opposition? Nope. Okay. That is it for consent items. Let's move down to new business. And I am going to ask Counselor Byrd to introduce this because this is something that he and I are both excited about.
Number one, an act amending Legislative Act 25-17 authorizing the comprehensive capital budget fiscal year 2018 law and declaring an emergency. Put that
Have a
for
motion. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
This is setting some money aside to provide a location for the archives at the Heritage Center. And for those of you who did the behind-the-scenes tour, I don't think we could spend our money any better. They need that. It needs to be preserved. I know Counselor Shaw was very concerned about preserving documents we had, so I'm thrilled about that. All those in favor? Any opposition? Okay, Counselor Austin, would you take number 2, please?
Certainly. This is an act amending legislative Act 26-17, authorizing the comprehensive operating budget for fiscal year 2018, Mod 3, and declaring an emergency. And I put that in the form of an emotion. Not emotion, but a motion.
I've got a motion. Can I have a second?
It's a song.
I have a motion and a second to approve the operating budget. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Any announcements?
Got a community meeting tonight, ma'am.
Okay. What are you serving?
Fair in Oklahoma, Thanksgiving supper, 6:30 at the fire department.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Next meeting scheduled for December 12th. We'll do it again. Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Any opposition? Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Merry Christmas.
And we're going to be back before Christmas.